The old Honda made a strange grinding sound as Maya pushed it up another hill. She had been driving for what felt like forever, watching the sun set and rise again through her cracked windshield. Her hands were shaking on the steering wheel, not from the cold mountain air, but from everything she had left behind in Phoenix. She kept checking her rear-view mirror, even though she knew he couldn't follow her here. Not this far, not to wherever here even was. The GPS on her phone had died hours ago, and the last road sign she remembered seeing was something about entering Montana. The mountains around her looked like sleeping giants, covered in thick green forests that seemed to stretch on forever. Maya's stomach growled loudly, reminding her that the stale gas station sandwich she'd eaten yesterday was her last real meal. She had exactly $47 left in her wallet, plus some coins scattered in the cup holder. Not enough to stay in a motel, barely enough for gas, but she couldn't stop driving. Not yet. The rain started as just a light drizzle, but within minutes it became a heavy downpour that made it hard to see the narrow mountain road ahead. Maya's windshield wipers were old and streaky, leaving smears across the glass. She leaned forward, squinting through the mess, trying to make out the yellow lines that marked the center of the road. That's when the car started making that terrible noise again, a grinding metal-on-metal sound that made her heart sink. The engine light had been on for the past 50 miles, but she had been hoping, praying, that the old Honda would just keep going a little longer, just until she could find somewhere safe to stop and figure out what to do next. The car shuddered once, twice, then rolled to a stop right there in the middle of the narrow road. Maya turned the key again and again, but nothing happened. Not even a click. The engine was completely dead. She sat there for a moment, listening to the rain pound against the roof of the car, feeling more alone than she had ever felt in her entire life. Through the passenger window she could see nothing but dark trees and fog. No lights, no houses, no signs of other people anywhere. Maya grabbed her phone from the dashboard, but there were no bars. No signal at all? She was completely cut off from the world, sitting in a broken-down car in the middle of nowhere. With less than $50 and a bag of clothes that still smelled like the apartment she had fled from. She pulled her thin jacket tighter around her shoulders and stepped out into the rain. The cold mountain air hit her like a slap, and within seconds she was soaked through. Maya tried to push the car to the side of the road, but it was too heavy and the road was too slippery. She was stuck. Looking around in the dim light, Maya spotted what looked like a dirt road leading off into the trees. Maybe it would lead to a house, or at least somewhere she could wait out the storm. She grabbed her duffel bag from the back seat, locked the car out of habit, and started walking. The dirt road was muddy and full of potholes that had turned into small ponds. Maya's sneakers were completely soaked within the first few steps, and the bag on her shoulder seemed to get heavier with each step. The rain was coming down so hard now that she could barely see 10 feet ahead of her. She walked for what felt like hours, though it was probably only 30 minutes. Her feet were numb with cold, and she had started shivering so badly that her teeth were chattering. Just when she thought she couldn't take another step, she saw a light in the distance. It was a warm, yellow light coming from what looked like a farmhouse. Maya felt a surge of hope and picked up her pace, nearly running toward the light. As she got closer, she could make out the shape of a large barn and some fencing. It was definitely a ranch or farm of some kind, but as she approached the barn, Maya's legs suddenly felt like they were made of concrete. A combination of exhaustion, hunger, and stress finally caught up with her all at once. The world started spinning, and she felt herself falling forward onto the gravel driveway. The last thing she remembered was the sound of rain hitting the metal roof of the barn, and the rough feeling of small rocks against her cheek. Jack Miller was an early riser by necessity. The cattle needed to be fed, and there were always repairs to be done around the ranch. At 52, he had been working this land for most of his adult life, and his body was used to waking up before dawn. Even when the sky was still dark and stormy like this morning, he pulled on his boots and rain jacket, grabbed his coffee thermos, and headed out toward the barn. The storm had been going on all night, and he wanted to check on the animals before starting his other chores. Jack pushed open the barn door and was about to step inside when he saw something that made him stop cold. There was a woman lying face down in the gravel driveway, completely motionless. Her dark hair was plastered to her head with rain, and her clothes were soaked through. For a terrible moment, Jack thought she might be dead. He rushed over and knelt down beside her, gently turning her over. She was young, maybe in her late 20s, with cuts on her hands and a scrape on her forehead. But she was breathing, and when Jack checked her pulse, it was strong and steady. "Hey," he said softly, "can you hear me?" The woman's eyes fluttered, open for just a moment, unfocused and confused, before closing again. Jack could see that she was shivering violently, and her lips had a bluish tint that worried him. He needed to get her inside and warmed up. Fast. Jack carefully lifted her up, surprised by how light she was. He carried her across the yard and into his house, kicking the door closed behind him. The living room was warm and cozy, with a fireplace that was still glowing from the night before. He laid her down on the couch and covered her with 2 heavy quilts for the next few minutes. Jack moved around the house quickly and quietly, gathering supplies. He brought towels, a first aid kit, and a thermos of hot soup he had made the night before. He turned up the heat and added another log to the fire, trying to warm up the room as much as possible. The woman was still unconscious, but her shivering was starting to slow down. Jack noticed that her hands were cut up pretty badly, probably from falling on the gravel. He cleaned the cuts carefully and wrapped them with gauze, trying not to wake her up while he worked. Jack found himself wondering who she was and how she had ended up unconscious in his driveway. She didn't look like she was from around here. Her clothes were city clothes, not the kind of thing people wore for hiking or camping in the mountains. And she had no purse, no ID, nothing except a duffel bag that was still sitting by the front door. Jack had always been a private person, someone who minded his own business and expected others to do the same. But something about this situation felt different. The woman looked scared even while unconscious, and Jack had the feeling that she was running from something rather than running toward something. He made himself a fresh cup of coffee and settled into the armchair across from the couch to wait. Outside, the storm was still raging, but inside the house it was warm and peaceful. Jack watched the woman sleep, ready to help if she woke up, but giving her the space she clearly needed to rest and recover from whatever had brought her to his door. Maya woke up slowly, her mind foggy and confused. The first thing she noticed was warmth. Real, deep warmth that seemed to wrap around her like a hug. For a moment she couldn't remember where she was or how she had gotten there. Then the memories came flooding back. The broken car, the rain, walking through the mud. And then nothing. She opened her eyes and found herself lying on a comfortable couch in what looked like someone's living room. Heavy quilts covered her, and a fire was crackling softly in a stone fireplace nearby. The room smelled like coffee and something that reminded her of her grandmother's house, wood smoke and old furniture and home-cooked meals. Maya sat up quickly, her heart racing. Where was she? Whose house was this? She looked around frantically, trying to piece together what had happened. Her duffel bag was sitting by the front door, and her clothes felt different, still her own, but dry now instead of soaked through. You're awake, said a quiet voice from across the room. Maya turned to see a man sitting in an armchair, holding a coffee mug. He looked like he was in his 50s, with graying hair and kind eyes. He was wearing work clothes, jeans, and a flannel shirt that had seen better days. Everything about him seemed calm and steady, but Maya still felt her muscles tense up, ready to run if she needed to. I'm Jack, he said simply. I found you outside my barn this morning. You were unconscious, so I brought you inside to warm up. Maya's hand instinctively went to her pocket, checking for her phone, her wallet, anything that might be missing. But everything was still there. Jack noticed her checking and set his coffee mug down on the table beside his chair. I didn't touch anything of yours, he said gently. Just dried off your clothes and bandaged your hands. They were cut up pretty bad from the gravel. Maya looked down and saw white gauze wrapped around both of her hands. She couldn't remember hurting them, but now that he mentioned it, they did ache a little. She flexed her fingers experimentally, and while it hurt, nothing felt broken. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice still hoarse from the cold and exhaustion. "I should go." She started to get up, but Jack held up a hand. "The storm's still pretty bad out there, and I'm guessing your car didn't make it very far since you were on foot." Maya sank back into the couch, suddenly remembering the Honda dying in the middle of the road. She had no car, no way to get anywhere, and less than $50 to her name. The reality of her situation hit her like a wave, and she felt tears starting to burn behind her eyes. "I can call someone for you," Jack offered. "A tow truck or family or whoever you need me to call." "No," Maya said quickly, too quickly. She saw Jack's eyebrows raise slightly, and she tried to soften her tone. "I mean, there's no one to call, and I can't afford a tow truck right now." Jack nodded like that made perfect sense, even though Maya was sure it didn't. Who travels through the mountains with no backup plan and no money? Someone running away, that's who. And she was pretty sure Jack had figured that out already. "Well," Jack said, standing up and stretching, "I was about to make some breakfast. You're welcome to join me. Then we can figure out what to do about your car." Maya wanted to say no, wanted to grab her bag and leave before the stranger started asking questions she couldn't answer. But her stomach chose that moment to growl loudly, reminding her that she hadn't eaten anything substantial in almost 2 days. "I guess I could eat something," she said, trying to sound casual instead of desperately grateful. Jack smiled, the first real smile she had seen from him. "Good, I make pretty decent pancakes if I do say so myself." The kitchen was small, but cozy, with wooden cabinets and a window that looked out over the ranch. Maya could see the barn where Jack had found her, and beyond that, rolling hills covered in morning mist. It was beautiful in a way that made her chest feel tight. She couldn't remember the last time she had been somewhere so peaceful. Jack moved around the kitchen with the easy confidence of someone who had been cooking for himself for a long time. He mixed pancake batter while bacon sizzled in a pan, and Maya found herself relaxing despite her better judgment. There was something about the ordinary, domestic scene that made her feel safer than she had in months. "So," Jack said as he flipped a pancake, "you're not from around here?" It wasn't a question, but Maya answered anyway. "Phoenix, I was driving through." "Long way from Phoenix," Jack observed. "Montana's pretty far north for just passing through." Maya didn't know what to say to that, so she didn't say anything. Jack seemed to understand that she didn't want to talk about it, because he changed the subject. "I've got some animals you might find interesting," he said instead. "Had a calf born last week, and she's been having trouble with her leg. Been trying to help her, but I'm better with fixing fences than fixing animals." Maya looked up from her plate. "What's wrong with her leg?" "She's limping pretty bad. Vet says it's probably just a sprain, but she's not putting any weight on it. Been worried about her." For the first time since waking up, Maya felt a spark of something other than fear or exhaustion. "I could take a look at her," she said. "I mean, if you want. I used to work with animals." Jack's face lit up. "That would be great. I've been trying everything I can think of, but she's not getting better." After breakfast, Jack led Maya out to the barn. The rain had finally stopped, but the ground was still muddy and slippery. Maya was wearing Jack's extra boots, which were too big for her feet but better than her soaked sneakers. The barn was warm and smelled like hay and animals. Jack led her to a stall where a small black and white calf was lying in the straw, her mother standing protectively nearby. Maya knelt down slowly, speaking in a soft voice to both the calf and her mother. She had always been good with animals, even as a kid. They seemed to trust her in a way that people sometimes didn't. "Hey there, little one," she murmured, gently examining the calf's leg. The animal watched her with big brown eyes but didn't try to pull away. Maya felt along the leg carefully, checking for swelling or breaks. The calf flinched slightly when she touched a spot near the knee, but otherwise seemed calm. "I think the vet was right," Maya said finally. "It's probably just a sprain, but see how she's been lying down so much. She's not getting enough movement to help it heal. We need to encourage her to walk around more, but gently." Jack watched as Maya showed him some simple exercises they could do with the calf, ways to encourage her to put weight on the leg without forcing it. Maya explained everything patiently, and Jack found himself impressed by how much she seemed to know. "You said you used to work with animals?" he asked. Maya nodded. "I was a vet tech for about 3 years." She paused, then added quietly, "before I had to stop." Jack wanted to ask why she had to stop, but something in her voice told him not to push. Instead, he just said, "Well, you clearly know what you're doing. This little girl's lucky you showed up when you did." Maya felt something warm spread through her chest at his words. It had been so long since anyone had acknowledged that she was good at something, that she had skills worth using. She had almost forgotten what it felt like to be helpful instead of just in the way. They worked with the calf for about an hour, and by the end of it, the little animal was taking a few tentative steps on her injured leg. Maya felt a surge of satisfaction watching her walk around the stall. "You're a natural," Jack said, and Maya could hear the genuine appreciation in his voice as they walked back toward the house. Maya found herself looking around the ranch with different eyes. It was a lot of work for one person, she realized. The fences needed repair, the barn could use some organizing, and Jack had mentioned several other animals that needed attention. "Jack," she said suddenly, stopping in the middle of the yard, "I don't have anywhere to go." Jack stopped too, turning to face her. He didn't look surprised by her admission. "I can't go back to Phoenix," she continued, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. "And I don't have money for a hotel or anywhere else. I know you don't know me, and I know this is asking a lot, but ... She took a deep breath. "Could I maybe stay here for a few days? Just until I figure out what to do next? I could help with the animals or other work around the ranch. I'm not asking for charity, I just need a little time." Jack was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. Maya held her breath, prepared for him to say no, to tell her she needed to figure something else out. "There's a small cabin out back," he said finally. "Used to be the hired hands' quarters back when I could afford to hire help. It's not much, but it's clean and warm. You could stay there for a while if you want. And I could definitely use help with the animals." Maya felt tears of relief spring to her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "I promise I won't be any trouble." Jack smiled that gentle smile again. "Something tells me you're exactly the kind of trouble this place needs." Maya had been staying in the small cabin behind Jack's house for almost 2 weeks when the storm hit. She had settled into a comfortable routine, helping with the morning chores, taking care of the animals, and slowly fixing up the little cabin. That had become her temporary home. For the first time in months, she was sleeping through the night without nightmares. The cabin was simple, but cozy. It had a small kitchen, a living area with a wood stove, and a bedroom with a window that looked out over the pasture. Jack had stocked it with basic supplies and even brought her some books from his house. Maya had started to think of it as her own little sanctuary. She was reading by the wood stove when the first crack of thunder shook the cabin. Through the window, she could see dark clouds rolling in fast over the mountains. The wind was picking up, bending the trees in ways that made her nervous. Maya grabbed her jacket and ran toward the main house. She found Jack in the kitchen, listening to a weather radio with a worried expression on his face. "How bad is it going to be?" she asked. Jack looked up from the radio. "Pretty bad. They're calling for severe thunderstorms, maybe even a tornado. Watch, the main thing I'm worried about is the cattle. They're in the far pasture, and if lightning starts hitting, they could panic and run into the fence." Maya had learned enough about ranch life to know that panicked cattle could seriously hurt themselves or each other. "What do we need to do?" "We need to get them moved to the barn before the worst of it hits," Jack said, already reaching for his rain gear. "Problem is, it's a 2-person job, and I usually have to do it alone. Takes me twice as long." "I'll help," Maya said immediately. Jack paused. "You sure? It's going to be rough out there. And moving cattle isn't easy work." Maya thought about all the times Jack had helped her over the past 2 weeks without asking for anything in return. He had given her food, shelter, and most importantly, He had given her space to heal without pushing her for answers about her past. "I'm sure," she said. "What do I need to know?" Jack quickly explained how to move cattle safely. The key was to stay calm and move slowly, using body language and voice commands to guide them in the right direction. Maya listened carefully, asking questions when she didn't understand something. By the time they made it to the pasture, the wind was howling and the first drops of rain were starting to fall. The cattle were already nervous, huddled together in a tight group near the fence line. Maya could see the fear in their eyes as thunder rolled across the sky. "Stay behind me," Jack called over the wind. "We'll move them slow and steady. Don't make any sudden movements." Maya nodded and followed Jack's lead as they approached the herd. Jack made soft clicking sounds with his tongue, and Maya tried to copy him. To her surprise, the cattle responded, starting to move slowly toward the gate that led back to the barn. Everything was going smoothly until the lightning started. The first bolt lit up the entire sky, followed immediately by a crack of thunder so loud it seemed to shake the ground. The cattle panicked instantly, scattering in all directions. "Maya, watch out!" Jack shouted as a large bull charged past her. Missing her by just a few feet, Maya's heart was pounding, but she didn't run. Instead, she remembered what Jack had taught her about staying calm around scared animals. She planted her feet and held her ground, speaking in a steady voice to the cattle nearest to her. "It's okay," she said, even though she wasn't sure it was. "Easy, easy, we're just going to the barn." Somehow, her calm voice seemed to cut through the panic. The cattle near her stopped running and looked at her, ears forward, waiting to see what she would do next. Jack was dealing with another group of cattle on the far side of the pasture, but he glanced over and saw Maya standing her ground. He felt a surge of pride and relief. She was handling herself like someone who had been working with livestock for years. "Guide them toward the gate," Jack called, nice and slow. Maya began moving backward toward the gate, keeping her voice steady, and her movements calm. The cattle followed her, step by step. When another bolt of lightning flashed, they startled but didn't bolt. Maya's presence seemed to anchor them. It took them almost an hour to get all the cattle safely into the barn, but they managed it just as the worst of the storm hit. Rain poured down in sheets, and the wind howled around the barn like a wild animal. Inside the barn, Maya and Jack were both soaked to the skin and exhausted. Maya's hands were shaking, partly from cold and partly from adrenaline. She couldn't believe she had just done that, face down a herd of panicked cattle in the middle of a storm. "You did great out there," Jack said, wringing water from his hat. "I couldn't have done it without you." Maya looked around at the cattle, all safe and calm now in their stalls. "I can't believe we actually did it." "You're a natural," Jack said, echoing what he had told her about working with the injured calf. "Most people would have run when that bull charged." "You stood your ground." Maya felt something warm spread through her chest. It had been so long since she had felt capable of anything, since she had felt like she could handle a crisis instead of just surviving it. "Jack," she said suddenly, "I need to tell you something." Jack looked at her, waiting. "I didn't just leave Phoenix," Maya said. "I ran away from someone who hurt me for a long time." Jack's expression softened. "I figured it was something like that." "You did?" "Maya, I found you unconscious in my driveway with cuts on your hands and no money. You flinch every time a truck drives by on the road. You sleep with all the lights on in the cabin." Jack's voice was gentle but matter-of-fact. "I didn't need you to tell me you were running from something. I just needed you to feel safe enough to stay." Maya felt tears starting to flow down her cheeks. "I was so scared all the time. I forgot who I was. I forgot that I could do things, that I was good at things." "You are good at things," Jack said firmly. "You saved that calf's leg. You just helped me move 40 head of cattle through a thunderstorm. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met." Maya wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I don't feel strong. Strong people rarely do," Jack said. "They're too busy being strong to notice it." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, listening to the storm rage outside. The cattle had settled down and were chewing hay peacefully, as if the chaos of the past hour had never happened. "Jack," Maya said finally, "what I said about just staying for a few days. I know it's been 2 weeks already, and I don't want to take advantage of your kindness, but you're not ready to leave yet," Jack finished for her. "No," Maya said quietly, "I'm not. And I think maybe you could use the help around here. I mean, if you want me to stay longer." Jack smiled. "Maya, I've been running this ranch by myself for 2 years. It's been the loneliest 2 years of my life, having you here. It's like the place is alive again." Maya felt her heart skip. "So I can stay? As long as you want," Jack said. "There's plenty of work to keep you busy. The animals love you, and you're better with them than anyone I've ever seen. I could pay you a fair wage, help you get back on your feet properly." Maya looked around the barn at the cattle they had just saved. Together, she thought about the injured calf that was now walking normally, about the quiet mornings feeding the chickens, about the way Jack made her feel safe without making her feel trapped. "I'd like that," she said. "I'd like to stay." Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside the barn, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in years. She felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The next morning, Maya woke up in her cabin and realized she hadn't thought about Phoenix or her past life once during the entire storm. She had been too busy living in the present, too focused on the work at hand to let her mind wander to dark places. As she got dressed and prepared to start another day on the ranch, Maya caught sight of herself in the small mirror by the door. The woman looking back at her looked different from the scared, broken person who had collapsed in Jack's driveway 2 weeks ago. This woman looked capable. This woman looked like she belonged somewhere. Maya smiled at her reflection and headed out to start the morning chores. She had found more than just a place to stay. She had found a purpose, and maybe, just maybe, she had found herself again. 3 months had passed since Maya first collapsed outside Jack's barn, and life at the ranch had settled into a rhythm that felt as natural as breathing. Maya woke up each morning in her little cabin, made coffee, and walked to the main house, where Jack would already be starting breakfast. They would eat together, plan the day's work, and then head out to take care of the animals. Maya had become an essential part of the ranch. She had a gift with the animals that amazed Jack every day. The horses came running when they heard her voice, the cattle followed her lead without question, and even the barn cats had adopted her as their favorite human. But more than that, Maya had become someone Jack looked forward to seeing every morning. It was a Thursday when Maya made an announcement that changed everything. "I've been thinking," she said over breakfast, stirring sugar into her coffee. "I want to go back to school." Jack looked up from his eggs. "What kind of school? Online classes? To finish my veterinary degree?" Maya's voice was excited but nervous. "I was only a year away from graduating when I had to stop. I think I could do it now, if I studied at night after the ranch work is done." Jack felt a surge of pride. When Maya had first arrived, she could barely make eye contact. Now she was talking about building a future. "That's a great idea," he said. "What would you need to get started?" Maya pulled out a piece of paper covered in her handwriting. "I already looked into it. I can transfer most of my credits from Phoenix. I'd need to take 12 more classes, and I could do most of them online. There's just one problem." "What's that?" "Money. It's expensive, and I still don't have much saved up." Jack set down his fork. "Maya, you've been working here for 3 months. You've saved me money on vet bills, helped me get twice as much work done, and you've never asked for anything. Let me help pay for it." Maya shook her head immediately. "I can't let you do that. You've already done so much for me." "This isn't charity," Jack said firmly. "This is an investment, a real veterinarian living on the ranch. That would be worth its weight in gold. Plus, you'd be able to help other ranchers in the area. There's only one vet for 50 miles, and he's about to retire." Maya looked at the paper in her hands, then back at Jack. "You really think I can do it?" "Maya, you diagnosed that problem with Charlie's eye infection last week before the vet even got here. You delivered those twin calves like you'd been doing it for years. You have instincts that can't be taught, Jack leaned forward. Of course. You can do it. That afternoon, Maya enrolled in her first online class. Jack had insisted on buying her a laptop, and Maya had finally agreed after promising to pay him back once she was earning more money. She set up a study area in her cabin. With a desk by the window and good lighting for reading, the first few weeks were harder than Maya had expected. She had to relearn study habits she hadn't used in years, and some of the material was more advanced than what she remembered from before. But Jack was incredibly supportive. He adjusted their work schedule so Maya could study in the evenings, and he often brought her dinner to the cabin when she was deep in her books. "How's the studying going?" Jack asked one night, finding Maya hunched over her laptop with textbooks spread all around her. "Good, I think. This anatomy class is kicking my butt, but I'm getting through it." Maya rubbed her eyes. "I forgot how much I actually loved learning this stuff." Jack noticed the dark circles under her eyes. "When's the last time you took a break?" "I don't need a break, I need to catch up." "I'm behind on everything, Maya?" Jack's voice was gentle but firm. "You're not behind, you're exactly where you need to be." Maya looked up at him, and Jack saw the old fear creeping back into her eyes, the fear that she wasn't good enough, that she was somehow failing. "Hey," Jack said softly, sitting down beside her. "What's really going on?" Maya was quiet for a long moment. "What if I can't do this? What if I'm not smart enough, or I've been away from school too long, or I'm just fooling myself?" Jack recognized the voice of someone who had been told they weren't good enough for so long that they had started to believe it. "You want to know what I think?" Maya nodded. "I think you're scared of succeeding. Because if you succeed, it means you're really free. It means you can build whatever life you want." Maya felt tears starting to form. "That's terrifying." "I know," Jack said. "But you're not alone anymore. You don't have to figure everything out by yourself." That night, Maya realized something had shifted between them. Jack wasn't just her employer or even just her friend. He was someone who believed in her dreams as much as she was starting to believe in them herself. The next few months flew by. Maya threw herself into her studies with a determination that impressed Jack. She would work on the ranch during the day, then study until late at night. On weekends, she would catch up on assignments while Jack took care of the heavier chores. Maya's confidence grew with each passing grade. She aced her anatomy class, excelled in animal behavior, and even started helping Jack with more complex veterinary procedures around the ranch. Other ranchers in the area began asking for her advice when their animals got sick, but the real test came on a cold December morning when Maya's phone buzzed with a text message. She read it and went completely pale. "Maya?" Jack said, noticing her expression. "What's wrong?" Maya showed him the phone. The message was from an unknown number. "I know where you are. We need to talk." Jack felt his stomach drop. "Is it him?" Maya nodded, her hands shaking. "I don't know how he found me. I changed my phone number. I don't have social media. I've been so careful. What do you want to do?" "I don't know." Maya's voice was barely a whisper. "I thought I was safe here. I thought I could just start over and he would forget about me." Jack was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he said, "You are safe here, and you're not the same person who left Phoenix. You're stronger now. But what if he comes here? What if he tries to make me go back?" "Then he'll have to deal with me," Jack said simply. "And Maya, you don't have to handle this alone. We'll figure it out together." Maya looked at Jack and saw something in his eyes that made her heart skip. It wasn't just friendship or even protectiveness. It was something deeper. "Jack," she said softly, "I need to tell you something." "What?" "I care about you, a lot. More than I should, maybe. And I'm scared that if he comes here, it will ruin everything we've built." Jack reached over and took her hand. "Maya, nothing is going to ruin what we have. Nothing." They spent the rest of the day making a plan. Jack helped Maya change her phone number again, and they decided to increase the security around the ranch. Maya would be more careful about going into town alone, and Jack would make sure she was never isolated or vulnerable. But most importantly, they talked about what was happening between them. They both admitted that their feelings had grown beyond friendship, but they also agreed to take things slow. Maya needed to feel safe and secure, and Jack wanted to make sure she was choosing him for the right reasons, not just because she was grateful or scared. "I don't want you to feel like you owe me anything," Jack said as they sat on the porch that evening, watching the sunset over the mountains. "I don't feel that way," Maya said. "What I feel is happy. For the first time in years, I wake up excited about my day. I love working with the animals, I love my classes, and I love spending time with you," Jack smiled. "I love spending time with you too. I love watching you discover how capable you are. I love seeing you chase your dreams." Maya leaned against Jack's shoulder, feeling safer than she had all day. "Promise me something?" "Anything. Promise me that no matter what happens, we'll face it together. I'm tired of running away from things." "I promise," Jack said, wrapping his arm around her. "We're a team now. Whatever comes next, we'll handle it together." As the stars came out over the ranch, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in years. She felt like she was exactly where she belonged, with exactly the right person. And for the first time since that text message arrived, she wasn't afraid of what tomorrow might bring. The next morning, Maya woke up with a new determination. She had spent too many years letting fear control her life. Now she had something worth fighting for: her education, her future, her home at the ranch, and her relationship with Jack. If her past wanted to catch up with her, she would face it head on, with Jack by her side. Maya looked out the window of her cabin at the ranch where she had found herself again. This was her home now, and she wasn't going to let anyone take it away from her. 1 year later, Maya stood in her cap and gown, holding her veterinary degree with shaking hands. The online graduation ceremony was playing on Jack's laptop in the kitchen, and Maya could barely believe she was actually watching herself walk across that virtual stage. "Dr. Maya Rodriguez," the announcer had said, and Maya had felt her heart swell with pride. After everything she had been through, after all the times she had wanted to give up, she had actually done it. Jack was beaming beside her, clapping so enthusiastically that he nearly knocked over his coffee mug. "I knew you could do it," he said, pulling her into a hug. "I am so proud of you." Maya had changed so much over the past year. The scared, broken woman who had collapsed in Jack's driveway was gone, replaced by someone confident and capable. She had faced her fears, pursued her dreams, and built a life she was proud of. The threatening text messages from her ex had stopped after Maya changed her number for the second time. She had also contacted a lawyer and filed for a restraining order, something the old Maya would never have had the courage to do. She was done running away from her problems. "So, Dr. Rodriguez," Jack said with a grin, "what's your first official act as a veterinarian?" Maya laughed. "Well, Mrs. Henderson called this morning. Her horse has been limping, and she asked if I could come take a look. I guess word is getting around that there's a new vet in town." Jack's face lit up. "That's fantastic. You're going to be busier than you ever imagined." Maya had already started seeing clients around the area even before she officially graduated. Word had spread quickly that there was a skilled animal doctor working out of Jack's ranch, and farmers from 3 counties over had started calling for help. Maya had set up a small clinic in one of Jack's unused barns, and she was amazed at how quickly her practice was growing. "I've been thinking," Maya said, suddenly looking nervous, "about us, about what happens next." Jack set down his coffee mug and gave her his full attention. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I have my degree now. I could go anywhere, do anything. I could get a job at a big animal hospital in the city or start my own practice somewhere else." Maya paused, looking down at her hands. "But I don't want to go anywhere else. I want to stay here with you, if you'll have me." Jack reached across the table and took her hands in his. "Maya, this ranch has been your home for over a year. You don't need to ask permission to stay. The question is, what do you want our future to look like?" Maya took a deep breath. "I want to build something with you, a real partnership. I want to expand the veterinary practice, maybe even build a proper clinic on the ranch. I want to help you modernize some of the ranching operations. And I want us to be together, really together, not just as friends who happen to live on the same property." Jack's smile was so bright it could have powered the whole house. Maya, I've been hoping you'd say something like that for months. I love you. I have for a long time, but I wanted you to finish school and figure out what you wanted before I said anything. You love me? Maya's voice was barely a whisper. I love your determination. I love how gentle you are with the animals. I love how you sing to yourself when you're working in the barn. I love how you've turned this place from a lonely ranch into a real home. Jack stood up and walked around the table to where Maya was sitting. I love everything about you, and I would be honored to build a future with you. Maya stood up too, and Jack pulled her into his arms. I love you too, she said against his chest. I never thought I'd be brave enough to love someone again, but you made me feel safe enough to try. They kissed then, soft and sweet and full of promise. It was their first real kiss, and it felt like coming home. So, Jack said when they finally pulled apart, what's the plan, Dr. Rodriguez? Maya grinned. Well, first I need to call Mrs. Henderson back about her horse. Then I think we should start planning that clinic expansion. And maybe we should think about getting you some help around the ranch, since I'm going to be pretty busy with veterinary work. I might have an idea about that, Jack said mysteriously. Oh? There's a young guy in town, Danny Martinez, who just graduated from agricultural college. He's been looking for work, and I think he'd be perfect as a ranch hand. Plus, he's interested in learning about sustainable farming practices, which is something I've been wanting to explore. Maya raised an eyebrow. You've been thinking about this for a while, haven't you? I've been thinking about a lot of things, like how we could convert the old storage building into a proper veterinary clinic, and how we could set up a system for emergency calls, and how we could maybe get some of the other ranchers in the area to invest in a shared mobile veterinary unit. Maya stared at him. Jack, that's an amazing idea. A mobile unit would let me reach ranchers who are too far away to bring their animals here. I know. I've been researching it. There are grants available for rural veterinary services, and I think we could make a good case for funding. Maya felt tears starting to form in her eyes. You've been planning our future. I've been hoping for our future, Jack corrected. I didn't want to assume anything, but I've been thinking about what would make you happy. What would make this place the best it could be? Maya threw her arms around Jack's neck. How did I get so lucky to find you? I think we found each other, Jack said, holding her close, right when we both needed it most. Over the next few months, Maya and Jack worked together to transform the ranch into something neither of them had imagined a year ago. The veterinary clinic was built and equipped with state-of-the-art equipment. Danny joined the team as a ranch hand and quickly proved himself to be hardworking and innovative. Maya's practice grew rapidly. She was seeing clients from all over the region, and her reputation for skilled, compassionate care spread quickly. She specialized in large animals, but she also treated pets, and she had a particular gift for working with difficult or traumatized animals. One evening, as Maya was finishing up with her last patient of the day, she found Jack waiting for her on the porch of the main house. He was holding 2 glasses of lemonade and had a look on his face that she couldn't quite read. How was your day, Dr. Rodriguez? He asked, handing her a glass. Good, busy. I saw 12 patients today, including a very grumpy bull who didn't want his hoof treated. Maya sat down beside Jack on the porch swing. How about you? How did the meeting with the Agricultural Extension Office go? Really well. They're interested in partnering with us on a demonstration project for sustainable ranching practices. It could bring in additional income and help other ranchers in the area. Maya nodded, then noticed that Jack seemed nervous about something. Jack, what's wrong? You seem jumpy. Jack set down his lemonade and turned to face her. Maya, I have something to ask you. Okay. Jack reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Maya's heart stopped. Maya, this past year and a half has been the best time of my life. You've made me happier than I ever thought I could be again. You've brought life back to this ranch, and you've brought joy back to my world. Jack opened the box to reveal a simple, beautiful ring. I know we've already talked about building a future together, but I want to make it official. Will you marry me? Maya looked at the ring, then at Jack's hopeful, nervous face. A year and a half ago, she had been running from a man who had tried to control and hurt her. Now she was being asked to commit to a man who had helped her find herself again. "Yes," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, absolutely yes." Jack slipped the ring onto her finger, and Maya admired how perfectly it fit. "It was my grandmother's ring," Jack said. "She would have loved you. I wish I could have met her," Maya said. "She would have been so proud of what you've accomplished. What we've accomplished together." As they sat on the porch swing, watching the sunset over the ranch that had become their home, Maya reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She had started as a woman with nothing, running from a life that had nearly destroyed her. Now she was a successful veterinarian engaged to a man she loved, living in a place where she felt safe and valued. "Jack," she said, leaning against his shoulder, "do you ever think about how different our lives would be if I hadn't collapsed in your driveway that night?" Jack tightened his arms around her. "I think about it sometimes. But I also think we would have found each other eventually. Some things are just meant to be." Maya smiled, looking out over the ranch where cattle grazed peacefully in the fading light. "I never thought I'd be grateful for a broken-down car and a thunderstorm, but here we are." "Here we are," Jack agreed, kissing the top of her head. "Home." Maya had found more than just a place to live. She had found her purpose, her strength, and her heart. And as she sat there with Jack, planning their wedding and their future, she knew that the best part of her story was just beginning.